Well, who would have ever thought there's a switch on the side of my laptop, a tiny little switch that also blocks the camera from being used. Turns it off, stops it from being used for anything. Must have hit that little switch.
Well,
That's what you do. That's what you
keep
do
it.
in one of those lotion-filled nights in the hotel room.
This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results.
Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. We are on episode 93, boys. We are getting little by little ever so closer to milestone episode of 100. I am here today with Moneyball Ross and Data Mike. I am Bud, your hostess with the mostest. I'm going to do my best to keep these two knuckleheads in check as we go through today's news-filled episode. Some of it news, some of it a little bit of a follow-up. I was out at the Beer Business Daily Summit out in beautiful San Diego this last week and learned some things, wanted to bring back, talk about them on the pod because I think they're good topics that everybody's talking about today. They're very news-centric. You know, is it structural? Is it not? Is it demographics? Is it not? Is it health-conscious consumer? All these good things. So we're going to kind of pick these apart. Some really interesting things that we saw and we're going to look at today. But that's kind of the plan for the day. So segment number one, boys, health stack. People are being more healthy than they ever have. There is all kinds of, how do you want to say it? Like dichotomies back and forth. That's the wrong word or not the perfect word for it. But not everybody thinks like this, but some people are. So some of the four key things: moderation and abstaining are mainstream. More and more people potentially are taking part in the NA game or in dry January. GLP-1s, Ozempic, Wegovy, not just in a syringe anymore. You kind of got to be committed to use these things if you're using them with a syringe, right? They are now on a pill. You can take them down with your morning coffee. That is going to change people's use of these two. Wearables, I'm an 8 Sleep guy. I got the 8 Sleep, so it's not necessarily a wearable, but also you got the Oura rings, the Whoop bands, all that stuff tells you when you aren't sleeping. I actually think that might be the Democratic regime trying to keep people inside from COVID, telling people that they are tired and that you need to go to bed over and over again, but that's a conspiracy theory for a different day. And then the THC and cannabis is increasingly competing for the same occasions. Do you guys agree with any of that? Disagree with that? Where do you guys see the, back and forth between those two things or between those four things on your guys' end?
Well, where do we even start? I mean, kind of a lot to unpack there, right?
Take your pick.
Right.
Take your pick, Mikey. I know.
The health, the health is definitely playing part as we've, are now wrapping up 2025 and those GLP-1s are becoming more accessible and easier to use. Like you said, you don't have to give yourself the jab anymore. Now you can just take your pill. Moderation is a real thing. It isn't fringe behavior anymore. Roughly, at least 2/3 of the consumers are actively moderating or abstaining from alcohol, so we have to really think that. And when we think about what today's consumer is doing and cutting back and trying to be healthy, with all of those things that you said, with the ring, the Oura ring and everything else, it's calling out that you're not healthy and you're not moving and you're not active. Alcohol is obviously getting a pretty big cut of that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because when THC first showed up on the scene, people were like, well, it doesn't compete with alcohol. It's different. Mm-hmm. And my comment at the time was, it does compete for the marginal dollar. That's what matters. And even though you can say it's a different product and a different effect and a different core customer, you're competing for the marginal dollars. So it has taken a bite and will continue to take a bite out of sales from an alcohol perspective. I think we said it on the predictions episode, which is the decline will continue. And I think we've been talking about these themes for a while. So, it's going to continue. And I think it's a demographic shift too. It's the generation coming up that lived through COVID didn't get acclimated to social engagements involving alcohol because there were no social engagement, or it was online, or it was small groups of people interacting, not larger groups. So the idea that alcohol being part of larger social gatherings just isn't part of that zeitgeist of that generation. So as they come into their peak drinking age range, they're just not coming in with the same habits that the millennials came in with. So it's a generational, it's a demographic shift, and it's a trend that's going to continue.
I think it's on top of competing for those dollars too. They're really competing for the same emotional occasions. You know, when we're fighting over dollars and occasions instead of that glass of wine at the end of the day, or a few beers sitting around to relax, maybe now it's a THC seltzer. So when there are fewer occasions that we are consuming alcohol, and now we're competing with THC at the same time.
There's an incredible amount of stuff as you listen and we go through this today that is hypocritical. That's the right word that I was searching for earlier, where some things don't make sense. GLP-1s, we know that there are parts of GLP-1s that are not good for you. But if you are incredibly overweight, the negative side effects of GLP-1s outweigh the positives, or underweight the positives if you are that overweight. And then it makes sense to consume them and to take advantage of that to lose hundreds of pounds of weight. At the same time, moderate alcohol, we still have moderate drinking is good for you. That is still out there in the ecosystem. That is still proven science. And there is a new move towards social health and social wellness as well, that as we have moderated our drinking more and more, we've stepped back from consuming alcohol, especially in groups of folks where we're together in person, and we've succeeded more into our online worlds, into our doom scrolling and other things, that those have been negative repercussions as well. And a lot more of that social wellness and social health is coming up into play as well too, more and more. And Ross, your point on the THC and cannabis world, like the competing for the economics is the jump ball. It's the dollars, it's the jump ball, and the occasions and everything else are just a byproduct of it, where you are or aren't losing out, but it's that jump ball. We'll get into this a little bit more, but moving on, we'll get into THC a little bit more, but moving on to that share loss, this is the first big hypocritical that comes up. So gaining share, energy drinks, soft drinks, RTD cocktails, non-alcoholic beer, and sparkling water. Losing share, beer, wine, vodka, brown spirits, and hard seltzer. So what we're looking at is across various beverage. And the three of us need to start talking about beverage as a whole, because this is a podcast for distributors, right? Not just beverage alcohol, about beverage performance, beverage growth, packaged beverage as a whole, because this is what our clients work with and the people who listen to this. Energy drinks, that's not good for you. This eats through the concrete floor in our warehouses. It's taking share. It's up. Soft drinks, we know that sugar is worse for you than anything that you can drink.
Well, I think it's rich in a lot of these podcasts where I talk about how terrible the sugar is, because the alcohol converts to sugar, and how terrible that is. And the same token, these people are drinking like Monster energy drinks. Like, I mean, come on.
Straight sugar. Like, just cut the alcohol part out and let's just go right to the sugar. It's crazy, right? And then you've got RTD cocktails, non-alcoholic beer, and sparkling water. Like the sparkling water game, that might be the smartest thing that carbonated soft drink companies ever started to do, because I'm not a shopper for anything in the soda aisle at all. But at any given time, we're always buying a 12-pack of some LaCroix, some LaCroix Liquid Death, something like that is coming home with us one way, shape, or form. So you guys look at this slide, and I don't know if we have approval to share the slide, so I'm not going to. But you guys look at this slide and this data points where, like, beer's losing the biggest share points, still wine next, and then soft drink, and then sports drinks after that. But the biggest share gainers is energy, soft drinks, and then RTD cocktails and wine-based cocktails, beatbox and that kind of like. What do you guys take away from this in the hypocritical nature of like health and wellness, and also beverage growth and category as a whole?
Completely hypocritical, but we can't control the consumer. We've tried for years to preach to them what's good and what's bad, and alcohol consumption in moderation is good for you, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we can't control what they do. These charts here that we're staring at is exactly what we've been talking about for the last 12 to 18 months, as far as what's going on in our trucks, what's in our warehouse, and being ultimate beverage distributors, right? So if we're losing 3/4 of a point of share of beer, and it's going directly to energy or directly over to, RTDs or sparkling waters, and we're not utilizing any of those products, we're really missing the boat, because that's really, as we look at the entire category, and when we see that loss, and when we see it being made up in these other categories, energy drinks, RTDs, NA beer, right, sparkling water, those dollars aren't necessarily leaving our warehouse, they're just shifting.
I mean, I think we say it and we say it again and we say it again, which is you need to play the ball where it lays. And as distributors, we need to move towards the consumer. And a lot of times I've watched a lot of these objectives and incentives, and it feels like we're just fighting the tide, trying to save or fight the trend by ourselves in our market. And it just reminds me of like going out there and like trying to push the ocean back. I mean, you cannot fight the tide. I mean, you can't fight it in your small market where you live, let alone nationally. If you're thinking about large national suppliers, they're fighting tooth and nail to protect what is a shrinking category. And, you see some of the larger suppliers leaning into some of the growth categories, which is smart of them. But I think as a distributor, we need to be thinking about following the tide versus fighting it.
Mm-hmm.
I read this and I walked away more excited and energized to be in the distribution industry of this industry, or distribution tier of this industry, because the suppliers are in their portfolios, their individual portfolios will come and go as the individual supplier's portfolio and their brand management comes and goes. We have way more flexibility and way more nimble nature of our businesses, and how as a distributor can plug and play and move and box around the fringe of what is and isn't working in their markets. And if you're going and talking to your suppliers and are worried about any individual supplier's outcome, I would stop doing that. I would be solely focused on what does my portfolio look like to meet the consumer demands in my market today, and how am I going to fulfill those demands with or without the suppliers I have on my roster right now. Because as those trends change, suppliers have they have equipment needs. They have things that they buy. They have ways of building and creating and manufacturing their products that fit better than other products. And you don't have any of that like backlog. You don't have any of those challenges. You can shift on a dime and change what you're focusing on and change what you're selling. Where if they've got 6 breweries, if you're talking about one of the big nationals like Molson Coors or AB, between the two of them, they have 16 or 17 breweries. Like, they can't make some of these products that are hot. They can't stop making beer and start making soft drinks or energy drinks in their production facilities. It just doesn't work like that. No more different than a Monster or Coke. If it turned on a dime against them, could they start brewing alcohol or making wine or anything else? Like, they are locked into what they do, the way they do it, and how they do it with their capital expense and with their physical equipment. And we are armed with a whole nother rationale, which is we got feet on the street, we got trucks going to these stores, and we got consumers that are walking in and out buying every day. And how we're servicing them is ever more our responsibility, in spite of what any one supplier is doing. And what drove this home the most for me is that I was talking to Ryan Lake from JP Morgan. He's one of the finance guys in the area, or in this space. And we talked about the prediction that we had on Carbless would get bought by Molson Coors. And he was like, yeah, Molson Coors should buy it. It's a great thing to buy for them, but the distributors don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to them at all whether Molson Coors owns it or whether Carbless is independent. Like, it only matters to Molson Coors shareholders if they buy Carbless anymore. And 25 or 35 or 40 years ago, that was probably different, right? Like, our success as a distributor was much more aligned to one supplier because there was fewer of them. Now, as we have separated our revenue stream out and separated our profit pool out to more and more suppliers, any one supplier's success is less important to us than it was last year, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, which is it's just a newer way to think if you're getting to that point in your distributorship.
I think one thing I would say there is volatility is vitality. And instead of focusing on the decline, we need to remember that the proliferation of brands and styles and categories favors a distributor who is in a key position to build brands. So the more volatility there is, there's more brands cycling through, dying and birthing, the more people that are looking for brand building, which, as we've discussed in multiple podcasts, the 3-tier system has found itself through its nature and its structure as the best candidate to build brands. So instead of looking at it, hey, every year is 5% declines on beer, remember that the more that brands that are birthed, the more categories that are birthed, the more brands that need to be built. And where do brands need to be built? 3-tier system. So it's an opportunity. And the more volatility there is in the industry, the more opportunity. So it's life, it's vitality.
Yep. Inside the alcohol world, some highlights were the NA adult beverage. So NA beer crossed $1 billion in total sales. As we said already, RTD spirits specifically is up 26%. This regional independent light lager game, so think garage beer and outlaw beer, is up 54%. People are looking for those products outside of mainstream Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light. Imports, fringe imports, Japan, Guatemala, Ireland as well. Even we saw Ross in the market a couple of weeks ago. Was it
Nicaragua?
Tosin? Yeah. Is it Tosin? Is that how we say it?
Tona, Tona?
Tona, something like that.
We are butchering the pronunciation of it, by the way, I bet you.
100%. That was all over the place in the market we were working as well, too. And this is going to loop back around, too, that high ABV still in the bell curve of products, right? You've got NA crossed $1 billion, high ABV still growing, still getting more shelf space. One of the bigger brand deals done this year last year, Beatbox and AB, 14, 15, 16% ABV. And we'll talk about some other brands that were announced to get launched. Like, they're still a part of the internet that isn't worried about health and wellness at all. And it is looking to get hammered because the world is crazy. There's a lot of volatility and they need their ass to settle down to deal with it.
100%.
Mikey, anything that steps out in this wavelength or in this, the story of who bucked the 2025 trends in your visits in the market recently?
What surprised the hell out of me was all the fringe imports, the popularity, of those. Even walking around the floor in BWA with Ross and seeing a lot of those pop up, and just as surprised you guys were for the that beer that you found out in the market. But yeah, that one caught me by surprise. The high ABV still crushing it. Not a big surprise. That's been chugging along for quite some time, where it serves a purpose. I need to get there, and I need to get there quick. I only have time for one, or my occasion calls for one or two, and that's what I need. So that was still chugging along. Not too much of a surprise, but yeah, the fringe imports for sure caught me by surprise, and they're doing quite well.
Yeah. Well, Guinness is still on a tear. That's driving a lot of the Hispanic, non-Mexican import beers, from a total process wise or total volume wise, that's driving a ton of the boat for sure. In terms of new brand launches that we learned about last week too, I am going to share my screen on a couple of these. So if you're on the YouTube, you'll be able to see them. If you're not, you won't be able to. But I haven't seen anything like this in the market, but Super Light is coming from the people who own Surfside. They're going to be launching this in March 2026 is what my notes say. It's a vodka aid, so taking Gatorade and, putting vodka in it is a thing. We've known that for quite some time, but now this is actually putting it together in a package, 90 calories, zero bubbles, just like Gatorade, where it's no bubbles at all, launching March 2026. Obviously, it says launching March 2026, so I don't need to rely on my notes. It says that right there on the slide, bud. Pretty slick packaging here. Ross,
It's real quick. It's a little confusing though with the light, super light, right? LYTE. Is that like a Pedialyte? Is that like a, that's what my mind goes to instead of a Gatorade. It's more of like an electrolyte, vodka and electrolytes, or is it not an electrolyte drink?
I think they'd love to call it Super Aid, but that might not have passed muster, maybe, potentially.
Why?
Because it does on the bottom say, if you really small, you can barely see it, Mikey, on the bottom in the block where it says vodka aid, vodka plus aid.
Okay. So
No, I think it is. I mean, it is playing electrolyte because that's the spelling at the end of electrolyte, right?
that's where my mind would go. Yeah, it has a little bit of electrolyte in it. Could be vodka aid. All right, a little vodka aid. But
Are we getting a kickback for this?
No kickback. No kickback.
Where's our sponsorship deal on this one?
No kickback.
Right.
No
that's
grift,
interesting.
no
I mean, it just proves coming off of 2025 how crazy the industry was, where we're going next, right? We're looking at vodka and Gatorade, and putting it and packaging it and selling it on shelves, just because that's kind of where everything's going, especially even in the next one, the next example that you have. That's just where the market is showing some growth. And hey, if we have a little bit of growth over there, let's jump right on it, right? I mean,
well, to my knowledge, there's only one other brand in the market like this, and that this is the next brand that's coming out in this world from the Surfside folks. And they're already good. They're already the second largest RTD in the country, as far as I think that's what the data showed out there. Just huge numbers, and especially in the Northeast. Now, they're a tea, right? So tea is very regional. Gatorade is national. So the opportunity here is like, can they take the success they've had in regionalizing their product into tea and moving it across the country into this type of a package as well? Have a lot of success in that direction. So that's the objective with this product from their portfolio structure and why they want to launch this.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it takes me back, side story real quick. Back when I was 22, maybe 23, we all rented a houseboat in Tennessee and went on this houseboat with a ton of beer and a ton of liquor. And between the 14 of us that were on board, we ran out of all the booze except for the last night. All we had was AM Gatorade and cheap tequila. So I really hope vodka and Gatorade goes together a lot better than tequila.
This is also when Mikey had gauges in his ears as well, too.
They were just earrings.
This is also when Mikey had earrings.
Yeah.
Also gauges, even though he lies about not having gauges.
Yeah. So I don't recommend the next spin-off or the brand extension to be tequila and Gatorade.
Tequila Aid.
Tequila Aid is not going to work very good.
Hey, I saw tequila on that list as one of the fastest growing.
Yeah, love it. It just doesn't pair well with Gatorade.
The other brand that's coming out from the Surfside folks is Purple Tiger. And then they had, I think, a Red Tiger, which was a fruit punch flavor as well. I just grabbed a picture of the grape vodka soda. 10% alcohol, 16 ounces for those of you not on the YouTube. Launching May 2026. Feeds right into that high alcohol content, 4-pack and single serve. This is going to be malt based. This will be malt based in some places and vodka in other places, because they do want to make this a national brand for some of the control states out there that happen or that are out there. So they're playing around with this, but this, Mikey, you had an opinion around this. Like, this is where the success is. A lot of opportunities in this world. You see this working?
Yeah, this makes total sense to me, right? Vodka and soda has been killing it for numerous years now, and we see a lot of success with like Monaco brands, 10 plus ABV, Cutwater 10 plus ABV. So this combination here, I think, would be successful, especially just with the whole higher ABV category being on fire. We've got a camp building brands around moderation, weekdays, fitness, lower calories, right? And Gatorade. And then we got another camp building around fewer occasions, higher ABV, make it count. If I can only have a cocktail or two because of moderation, make it count. I don't want something that 4.5%, maybe 4.3%. So to me, it makes total sense. Really trying to capture those two consumers on both ends of those spectrums.
Yeah. Yeah. Ross, you want to take a break?
Nope. Oh, yeah,
She's
maybe
not
for
bothering us.
for 2
Why don't we
seconds.
bring Hazel on?
Yes. Yes.
No, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna give her some chips.
You're good.
Give her some
So,
chips.
give her some chips. Ross is pulling dad duty.
He must be a single parent right now.
He is single parenting it right now,
That's
and
awesome.
Hazel is hanging out. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Oh, such good stuff. So, Mikey, like this world is going to just continue to evolve on the high alcohol content side. I think we're going to see more and more and more, not less and less and less.
Yeah, I mean, if the trends are pulling us into people are drinking less often, and people are drinking with more intent, and what I mean by that is that if you're drinking less often, that means you're not drinking 6 or 8 beverages around the 3 to 4 or 5% ABV. You're having 1 or 2, and when you're having 1 or 2, you want it to do what it's supposed to do, like a glass of wine or a glass of scotch or bourbon would do, right? Get you there. So you're not gonna have that with a 4.3 high noon or neutral. You're gonna get there with a Cutwater, something like this, and then the 10 plus. Voodoo Rain.
Ross, any thoughts on these two brands?
No, I'm out of my depth here, but yeah, I think
It's okay.
Did you get chips?
What Hazel get for a snack?
just trying to keep her happy. Give her some vinegar chips.
What's her take on these high ABV vodka seltzers?
Hopefully she doesn't have a take.
We don't want our 5-year-old to have a take yet, right, Ross?
I'm not in the camp of moderation. I'm in the camp of if you're going to drink, make it worthwhile, make it something nice. I don't personally subscribe myself to the idea of like maximum alcohol, one drink. If I'm going to drink, I want to drink something I really want.
Quality.
I'd rather drink quality. And if I'm going to drink in moderation, just make it one really good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my camp, but I don't think I'm the market.
I mean, how many times have we all worked a beer festival or, been running sampling and you have consumers come up and say, what's the highest ABV beer you have?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's beer festivals. That's all you hear. It's like, give me the best bang for my buck.
Yeah. Now, these two products are going to do really well, more than likely, in some kind of C-store. So one of the buyers from Circle K was there. And what's really interesting about Circle K that I learned is that they're all corporate stores, right? So they're fully owned, fully managed from a corporate store perspective down. And some of the key takeaways that he talked about was that they're going to be more intentional sets. They're going to have high ABV that is going to survive because the velocity is earning on the margin. Obviously, that shopper in the C-store skews more male, more single to younger, and that they're making multiple visits, sometimes in a day, not let only in a week, that they're making multiple visits. This becomes their universe where they're consistently shopping on a regular basis, right? They're not going to the grocery store for the week. They're rolling in and out of a Circle K and a convenience store on a regular basis. And that, nostalgia for him is not paying the rent. So the brands have got to earn their space and have got to grow. And he talked about, Beatbox and Buzzballs a ton. And like those two brands are killing it, are going to continue to kill it. And he sees that those two brands are going to continue to grow in his footprint of stores across the year. So those are things that he was really excited about from a structural standpoint. The other thing that he noticed too, which will feed into our next one, is that he's starting to see green shoots with the Hispanic consumer. We'll talk about this in the next segment, but I'm just laying the foundation that he also talked about that in his lowest performing Hispanic market stores in the first part of 2025 and the first quarter to first half of 2025 are starting to see year over year same store sale growth in that Hispanic market. So any takeaways there? We're out in the market. We were in a ton of C-stores together, Ross, last week, and then you too, probably Mike as well. Anything in this world that is confirming, changing different opinions on your guys' minds? Ross, maybe you go first.
I mean, I was surprised by the amount of foot traffic in all the convenience stores. They were busy everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere from the
Yeah.
affluent areas to Oakland, it was all super busy. That I guess that was shocking for me. In my average daily life, I don't spend a lot of time in convenience stores. But compare that to like you walking into a Safeway, it was quiet.
Yep. Very much
So
so.
it's just interesting observation. I don't know what it means, but just
That's funny because where I was on the opposite side of the country, and the C store ruled the day. The convenience stores were super nice, big, right? Chains, with full restaurants in them, not sit down style restaurants. Yeah, they had a couple tables, but like you could get all kinds of food at these places, and they had everything under the sun, including a beer cave. So they're winning. I mean, to the point where we were offered, you want to go to lunch? Yeah, we can go. And it was a C store. It was a gas station. You want to go to lunch there? And Alicia had looked at me and she was like, really? Lunch at a gas station? Like, that's, it's kind of what they do. They have a lot of food there, but convenience is obviously winning. Right. And a lot and most parts of the country, I will say that, because they had some really nice, they call them distributors, but they're basically packaged liquor stores, large packaged liquor stores. But the convenience clearly winning the day, to where you can you go to a packaged liquor store and you're getting beer, right? But you're not getting that slice of pizza and a burrito and something else in a one-stop shop. But back to the whole retailer space thing, 100% agree. Retailers really don't have the luxury of nostalgia. They don't care about what used to work. They want to know, about what's earning the square inch right now, what's making that square inch money for them. And I think high ABV survives because it drives velocity and margin. NA's there because it brings in a new shopper. Small packs survive in the convenience just because it hits a price point, or everywhere too, right? In price conscious consumers. But as reps and as distributors, we really have a job to do. And if the SKU's not moving, then it really it gets cut, right? Because we're in a lot of these places, especially when we're fighting for shelf space, we're not competing against beer, we're competing against the shelf. We want to make sure that what we have out there is earning every single square inch that it can.
I think that's an interesting observation. I mean, every time you walk into the beer aisle of a grocery store, it's the same. It's the same damn layout, same damn products. Mm-hmm. But then you walk into that convenience store, and going back to that Nicaraguan beer, but this one account we went into, it was crushing. And my comment was, I guess there's some Nicaraguans in this neighborhood. Well, cool. You wouldn't have seen that at the Safeway, and it was like the number 2 selling product. And then I was on the other side of the territory the next day, and it was the slowest moving, but the Hispanic beers were moving. So I was like, well, I guess there's no Nicaraguans in this neighborhood, so switch it out, And you can't do that if you've got sets, mm-hmm. And you can try and you can push things and pull things and figure out what the neighborhood wants.
It used to
be much more attentive.
Yeah, great point. They're slow to react because they are changing their sets twice a year, pretty much once a year with a minor tweak, right? So they're slow to react there, but they're also, if you really think about it, and I take us back 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, large format really ruled the day. Everybody went there to buy their beer. It was cheaper. They got a better price, right? Large packs all day long, 12 packs. The variety, during the craft boom, there might have been a 4 or 8 foot section of some decent crafts to choose from. Slowly over time, that has shrunk, but primarily that's where you went to buy your beer, right? But I think that, as you've noted, and I've kind of observed too, that is shifting to a more responsive, proactive, I guess, approach from the C stores. Where, hey, these are the trends right now. We don't have to wait until April to reset this store. This whole section can be reset tomorrow, right? And we also give most of our larger chains, especially regional chains, they're giving the stores the flexibility. Every single one of those convenience stores that I went into that were a chain had some sort of flex space or some sort of control of what was coming in and coming out, to make it all relevant for their market and where they were.
It's also something about those C-store managers or anybody who's working the counter, that there's a relationship with the people that come in and out, right? Like,
oh yeah,
the grocery stores have kind of turned into a little dystopian. You walk to a store by yourself, you put everything in your shopping cart, you go check out, you check out at the self-checkout line, you don't really talk to anybody and you leave, right? There's no curated shopper experience anymore, where there is a relationship with a lot of consumers with that store manager at a Circle K or at an independent convenience store that is there behind the counter every single day that they're working with or doing business with on a regular basis. It's a little bit different experience.
Absolutely.
It dovetails nicely into this obsession that we have around points of distribution for distribution's sake. If I'm the supplier rep for that Nicaraguan beer, I want to display at that account. I want it by the handle. I want to go to that account and thank the owner and buyer and tell them how appreciative I am of the business. I want to do a sampling there. Like, why to be focused on getting 10 new points of distribution? Instead, I should be focused on that neighborhood, right? And it's not in any of our data. I mean, we don't have demographic data on our territory to the point where we know, there's a contingent of Nicaraguans that live in this neighborhood. But, if you follow the data and the sales, there's obviously something going on in that neighborhood. So I think as a supplier, if you're listening, I think that's important too. It's, whether it is getting your hands on demographic data or two, looking at where you're successful and leaning into where you're successful versus trying to be everywhere.
So on that demographic front, one of the big questions was, will the Hispanic consumer bounce back in 2026? How does that look like? What does it look like? Remember, they're historically over-indexed on beer, spirits, and high ABV. They're very social community as well. They've got lots of things that they're doing together as a group. We've seen that they've been disproportionately impacted by inflation and also disproportionately impacted by all the obviously ICE raids and other things where they may be here illegally, or they just might, hey, I don't want to go get, tripped up in the crowd or an ICE pickup in some way, shape, or form because I'm not from here, but I'm legally allowed to be here. So what a lot of the conference speakers were talking about were there's going to the stores less. They've been making less and less visits, changing consumption patterns around purchase behaviors because they're not going as often. They're being more cautious about when they go out. And is that changing in 2026? We're seeing green shoots from some of the people who were talking at the conference. Some of them didn't talk about it all either. Any read on your guys' front? Do they bounce back? What's it look like if they do? Or do you think that it stays the status quo for the next foreseeable 6 months, 8 months, or maybe even all of 2026?
I'm going to take this back. Yeah, I'm going to take us back to the predictions episode. I think that the consumer on the Hispanic front will come back well and come back strong. And I think it's 100% in line with the conversation we had because it goes back to that K-shaped economy. And a great book that's worth reading is When Money Dies. It's about the Weimar hyperinflation. And history doesn't always repeat, but it does rhyme. And what we know about high inflationary periods is that you get this bifurcation of the high, wealthy individuals that have the assets. And the bottom end is actually much more sensitive to adjust to changes in inflation. In other words, the Hispanic community is high density trades, right? So construction, domestic, for better or worse. I mean, but the nice thing about that is they have multiple touch points, multiple consumers, and they're able to adjust their prices quickly. Whereas if you're in the middle of the economy, the part of the K that's getting murdered, i.e. the middle class, you have a salary. And your salary comes up for adjustment maybe once a year, and maybe it's 2-3% adjustment. Whereas if you're in the trades and copper prices double, then what do? Right? You can adjust your prices double tomorrow, right? You adjust your quote. And I think from a labor perspective, same thing, that you adjust your quote and you go project to project, so you can quickly adjust your pricing. So my feeling is that they're going to be much more adaptable to changes in inflation. And as we're recording this episode, I think PCE came out this morning. It came in hot. I mean, I think they were expecting 2.7. It came in at 3. So the goal of getting to 2% inflation seems to be further away today than it was 3 months ago. But yet, we're going into QE, not QE, we're lowering interest rates. So, we're going to run it hot, like we said on the episode. So I think that's all progressing the way I think we thought it would. And I think the Hispanic consumer is a beneficiary.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest variables heading into 2026. And it's probably not if, but it's more of when that consumer really comes back, right? And the Hispanic consumer really didn't disengage because they stopped beer stopped working for them culturally, they just pull back, right? I mean, economics, what Ross is calling out here, the fear has all entered the equation. So, and historically, I mean, Hispanics do one thing really, really well: social occasions, right? I'm always super jealous the family dynamics, the occasions of every
Carne
Hispanic
asada.
family I know. Yeah, I mean, every
Yep.
Hispanic family I know, they get together for everything, and it's just
Yep.
great. Family always gets along well. They're always together. Oh, let's do this, let's do that, and right, hey, why not bring some beers? And I feel like they have more occasions than non-Hispanic cultures do, for sure. So losing that in the beer industry is losing a big part of it. But until that, the fear, I think, of being able, like Ross called out, or you called out too, of being able to just go to the store because of ICE and some of the things that are going on, whether you're legal or illegal, I would still be fearful as well. So I don't think it's if, I think it's more of when. When does the confidence return?
Yeah, I
Confidence
think
doesn't have to return for risk assessment to be for risk openness to take risks to go down or to go up, right? I think is a better way to say that. So I've always looked at the Hispanic consumer bounce back through the lens of being scared to go shop on the ICE raids is very similar to COVID. Like at some point in time in 2020, you looked at yourself and your wife or your family member was like, I'm going to have to go back to work or I'm going to have to go out to the grocery store. Like you can't sit indoors all day long forever, right? And hide and do nothing. We don't live in a society where you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So your risk assessment of going back to living your life and your risk tolerance constantly rechanges and recalibrates every single day that goes by. And that's what this community's been going through since Q1 2025. And as they are changing their calibration on the risk tolerance, that's a component of how they are going to bounce back in 2026. And Ross, I like the twist you took on that. You know, if you look at the economics of that community, they could make changes to their income in a way that that knowledge worker or that white collar or blue collar salary type worker is not able to make. I think that's a fascinating take because they are in the trades, they are more entrepreneurial, and they work for themselves a lot of the times as well too, and they set wages or rates on the move with short term projects. It's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
And we also said there's going to be plenty of investment this year in build out.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're engaged in the construction industry, then you know that's going to be, like you said, it's going to remain hot. And if your other side of the demographic is servicing wealthy households domestically, well, if the wealthy are getting wealthier, then that plays in well to that too.
Yep.
And you know, those if if the assets are inflating, then the ability to raise prices on your affluent customers is there. So
it's easier.
It's easier.
We didn't talk about I didn't put this in the notes. I forgot to, Mikey, but you know, your predictions / wish list. We're still not sure whether it was only predictions or wish list in the predictions episode.
None
A
of those
lot of confidence, lot of confidence for your make a wish to keep THC and Delta 9 drinks legal and kick the can down the curb in some way, shape, or form. An incredible amount of confidence from various speakers across the board, and also from Brendan Wentworth at AB, like, why are we still talking about this? Like, they're dead. So a mix of both.
Really?
But there was basically like one speaker, Brendan, who was like, yeah, no, we're not going to talk about this because it's dead and it's never coming back. Which that's more where I think that it's going. And I know you think it's going to get can is going to be kicked down the curb in some way, shape, or form, but a lot of confidence on your side, big guy. Tons of confidence.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. What was kind of the take from the crowd and where this is actually going to go? You think reform or just delay, or what do you think?
Delay first with reform. So delay to buy more time for reform. Reform looks like dropping DTC, so dropping all direct to consumer as a category, federally mandated max per container, probably in the 5 milligrams, maybe 10, most likely 5. And there's a few other things around formalizing it from a regulatory side. And it sounds like from the insiders that are really in the know on this, that the biggest challenge that this group is going to have is the coalition build, right, around having a single central voice to legislators in Washington that this is what the industry wants or needs and wants to do. And that sounds like that a lot of that is getting ironed out, that there is becoming a central source or a central direction around this is what the industry wants. Because if it doesn't have that, and there's still cats and dogs and Tom, Dicks, and Harrys that are all running around having different things they want to legislators and not a centralized voice, they're never going to get anything done. So that has to happen. No matter what, whether anybody agrees it or not, if there isn't a central voice on what they want done, they're going to get screwed and they're going to get crushed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I can't wait to see how it plays out.
Yep.
Way too many tax dollars left out there though, for it to be ignored.
We talked about that. Yeah. Tax dollars, there's too much money. Consumers are wanting this, retailers are looking to sell this. Lots of it's growing, like all these things are things that, they're talking about, and we'll see. Yeah. We'll see, but people are talking about it for sure. When you
coming to a convenience store near you,
there you go. When you guys package all this up, what do you guys think this means for like our distributors? I did a little rallying cry at the beginning, but what else do you guys want to touch on as we bundle all this up? From these news articles for our clients out there listening, and the sales reps that, our clients, our customers of ours too, trying to make the change, trying to get this done trying to have a good 2026.
Yeah. I think listening to you recap it and, some of the stuff that you sent over and the BBD recap as well. I mean, I think it's seeing what it's not run for the hills moments. It's let's take an inventory moment. Right. And what stood out to me is it's not panic, it's realism. Nobody's saying alcohol is disappearing. But they're very clearly acknowledging that some of the, moves within the category and where things are moving to. So, and for me personally, and from the distributor standpoint, I don't really think much really changes. Nothing was hard hitting journalism. We've kind of seen these trends coming. We've kind of known that this is happening. And I feel like for the most part, a lot of distributors have done a very nice job of getting themselves in a position to, I wouldn't say withstand the storm, but to adapt to what 2026 has in store.
Yeah, lean into it. It's not a, I think you said it well, Bud, which is distributors are in an envious position when the market gets this volatile. Whether it's the macro, the trends, the demographics, distributors can adjust. And
the bug that I would put in people's ears around this, Ross, is like, you cannot program for every single opportunity that's out there in the market. So you have to ask yourself, like, what are you doing in your programming with your sales team that is inspiring and enrolling your team to find opportunities, whether you are telling them to do it or not? Like, you just can't handle this much velocity, this much, variability, this much opportunity, this much complexity from a programized plan month in and month out. So if anybody's listening to this and it's like, I'm just not sure what to do next, start asking your questions to your sales leadership. How are you going to be able to program for all this complexity? And if you're trying to, what are you doing to get out of trying to program for everything out there? Because you cannot program for all the opportunities out there. We have to turn sales reps, I'm going to start using this term, we have to start to turn sales reps out of like box checkers and out of order takers and into knowledge workers. And that they have knowledge, we should expect them to use it, and how they're using that in the field is going to be very important for those of us who want to succeed in 2026 and beyond.
Absolutely.
I put this last thing in as a joke and a sideshow. Sideshow, yes. NA isn't a sideshow anymore, but I think this valuation is a sideshow, Ross. Bureau raises another round. So Bureau is, for those of us not paying attention or sleeping under a rock in the NA world, is NA brand founded by Tom Holland, who's Spider-Man, right? Or one of the Spider-Mans out there. And they raised a round of nearly 10 million with a valuation right now. No, they sold nearly 10 million in their first year. They're projecting 30 million in 2026. And they have a valuation of $100 million in their latest round. To me, Ross, this is a brand that's growing and it's great, but this is a kiss of death to have a brand get this high of a valuation this early in the process. If I was a CEO of this organization, I'd be terrified of what my next round looked like. How do I eclipse this? Because now my trajectory has to get even harder. And it makes me feel warm and fuzzy at the valuation, but you got to get above that the next time. Otherwise, you're going to have a down round. And I'm bringing this up because headlines are cool, right? This is fun to see this happen. But how does this actually structurally play out in the private equity fundraising world? Because that's something that a lot of us industry members don't have a ton of experience at. And this, to me, just looks like a house of cards on what's the next raise looks like. Probably going to get hate mail from Spider-Man over this, but I just don't get it at all.
I mean, we talked about this a couple episodes ago. You need to adapt to your suppliers and the culture. It's a lot more like tech now. It's rounds, it's valuations.
That's a great point. Yes.
It's move fast, build quick, exit, burn out. Some die, some live. And, you need to move with your suppliers and where the market's moving. But again, interact with them knowing full well that you're basically dealing with tech startups that are capital, that are, different incentives than yours. Because again, you made the important point, Boyd, as well. What happens in the next round? Well, that assumes that they're going to burn cash, right? Because the only time you need to raise capital is if you're burning cash. Well, if you're burning cash, what's your goal? Your goal is maximum growth at all cost. And again, as a distributor, you need to remember who you're talking to. It's not about, short, their time preference is different than yours. You're building a multi-generational business. They're trying to get to the next round and get to an exit.
Great point. And it's the top beer on Amazon, top NA beer on Amazon too. So, great points. Good reminder of how our supplier partners are seeing the world differently. Top beer on Amazon, not even through our channel. Looking to grow direct to consumer, not through the traditional 3-tier system. Maybe not even thinking of brand building the same way that your classic beverage alcohol or NA beer has been built, like Heineken Zero, Ultra Zero, or Guinness Zero is being built through the 3-tier system, or even Athletic Brewing, because Athletic Brewing is massively being built. They have some DTC too, but that hasn't definitely been built through the beer distribution network as well too. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Do you ever see this anywhere in the market? Like, I don't see it anywhere on shelves. Do you two see it anywhere on shelves in the last couple of weeks?
I have not. I was going to do some research on it and check it out. It's just interesting, though. I mean, $10 million first full year makes you kind of step back and think, because that's all done through Amazon. That's quite different than what we're used to, because if a new brewery, a new supplier jumps out and says, hey, we did $30 million or $10 million in our first year, you're automatically thinking, well, $7.5 million of that still sitting in the back room or on a shelf somewhere. What did you actually do, right? What was the actual pull? What was the actual sell-through? With a company like Amazon, that's sell-through, right? I mean, they're not sitting on a shelf.
Amazon warehouse space is not cheap.
Yeah. So
well, I think more importantly, I would, if I'm sitting in the boardroom there, my first question is, what's your average cost of acquisition for a customer, and what's the retention rate? And I think the economics, if you looked into it, would be pretty scary. So again, if the goal is to get to the next round, then it doesn't matter what your cost of acquisition is, right? It's just about revenue growth. So even if I'm burning $6 to 6 to 1 to get customers in the door, I mean, it's again, this is a tech
different
startup
game.
It's a very different game. And you can grow quickly if you're willing to spend unlimited dollars to acquire customers, because you can advertise through Amazon, Facebook, and those sort of things. And again, it's the competitive market of eyeballs. If you're willing to pay, you'll get them.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if we can find it on the store shelves anywhere in their next few weeks that we're in the market, Mikey. Because I've never seen it out in the trade at all.
I have not either.
Yeah. Well, boys, another great episode, in my opinion. Have a lot of fun doing this. We even got a little Hazel. We didn't get to see Hazel, but we had a Hazel snack break in the middle of the episode. For those of you who like what we're doing, please continue to like, listen, and subscribe, and share with a friend. If you want to send us any questions, which we have some listener questions coming up, thank you for sending those in, for those of you who have, or some hate mail, you can send it to info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. We'll be back again next week with more stuff from Moneyball Ross, Data Mike, and myself, Bud. Until then, cheers, boys, and you guys rock.
Cheers.